then that would have been a whole different story. So if my friend had different information, you know, that he likes women who are really, really fun and really out there, whatever, then you would have different information. So I'm not saying that every single multimillionaire likes a particular type, but they do unless you got some specifications that were different, that you can be safe looking like that. And then, of course, if he's taking you someplace that's really bizarre, then that gives you an indication too.
Oh my.
And hopefully, you know, he's taking her to a lovely restaurant in Beverly Hills, as he should. That's what's expected. And so you're going depending on what information you have, right?
There you go.
Yeah. And now the man's job, if he is the client, is to call the matchmaker the next day and say, okay, I really had a good time, and what I really liked best about this particular person is. So I really enjoyed and appreciated this, 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 and this. And then, of course, in this case, Mauro is going to say to him, well, is there anything you didn't enjoy? And then he needs to be honest. You know, and if, it doesn't matter if you're being fixed up by Jessica, if you're being fixed up by Denise, if you're being fixed up by May, you want to be honest. So if it's May and you thought you were getting somebody who is a top-level executive, and it turns out the person isn't very successful or doesn't handle themselves in a way that seems intelligent enough or ambitious enough for you, you would say that to May. If you're going to a Jewish matchmaker like Jessica and you expect this person to be observant and observe the Sabbath and all the rest of it, and now she tells you, you know, that she went to, you know, have a bacon burger on, you know, Friday night, and that's things that observant Jewish people don't do, then you would, of course, call Jessica and say, oh, we got a problem. You know, there's something going on here that I don't think you're aware of. But if you're talking to Denise and she expects you to live in some geographical area, and then it turns out you've just moved, then, you know, and then you have a date with the guy, but you're leaving town, you know, the next week, then that's something that you have to tell Denise.
The details and
That's
the
right.
truth.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
important.
Yeah. Honest feedback.
Oh, now what about on the other foot here? What about a woman and a different kind of a man than perhaps the one that she was fixed up with in that situation?
So in other words, a guy that was not as described.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Well, now this is a tricky thing, because if the man is the client, and in every case it's not true, but a lot of matchmakers make their arrangements with the man, and it's the man who's paying. So if it's that kind of a scenario, then you have to be very careful, because if you complain about the guy, now why would a matchmaker deal with somebody who's a complainer? Let's face it. But you can graciously say, you know, I really had a good time and I really appreciated that date. He was a very, very nice guy. And I think he's older than he told you. And I don't think that I would marry a man who's 25 years older than I am, let's say, right? Or I know that you've done a background check on him, and these are imaginary people. You know, I'm not saying that I know this has happened to anybody, because I've just met all these matchmakers. It's all brand new. But, you know, I know you did a background check on him. So, you know, of course he doesn't have a criminal record. But there's something about him. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something off. Because every time I would say I was fascinated and wanted to hear more about his career, he would change the topic. So something like that. So that's the kind of feedback that a matchmaker needs to hear. Or, you know, certainly, you know, you told me that he lives in Sarasota, Florida, and I guess you're going to be really surprised to hear that he just moved to Boca Raton. Oh, of course, Denise or anyone else wants to hear that. So, again, understanding what the matchmaker told you about the guy, writing it down, of course, when you're on the phone or you get a sheet about him, then making sure that on your date you really know how to finesse for information. So Bob, I understand that you just moved to Sarasota from Connecticut. That's kind of interesting. You know, what motivated you to do that? Oh, it's because of my family, but I can't stand them, so we're moving. You know, that kind of thing. The matchmaker wants to hear this. So any information that you have that's really helpful to the matchmaker, she will appreciate hearing from you.
I love this question too, Susan. On their first date, the big one, you teach clients how to finesse. You've demonstrated that, but could you go ahead and help us with trying to get that information instead of asking directly? How can you finesse for information?
So nobody wants to be on the hot seat, right? You don't either. So how old are you, Jane? You know, nobody wants to know that. So what happened to those 3 husbands? You know, nobody wants to hear that, right? So your job is to say, well, that I understand that you have 2 children. That must be wonderful. Are they living at home, in college? Actually, you would know if they're living home. You know, so are they if they're not living at home. So are they in college? That must be really fun for you. And wait till you see what you get, right? You're assuming something, which is called finessing, so that you're putting out a little bait and you're seeing what the bait catches, what kind of a fish you get with it. Or, so interesting that you're in wealth management, and there are so many areas of wealth management. I'd love to hear which category you're in. This is something that you really love. See what you get. Or, you know, listen, I understand that you're an attorney. I would love to hear all about that. You must have so many amazing stories to tell. See what you get.
Nice.
As opposed to, so how old are your children? What do you do? You're an attorney? You know, so none of that. None of that. Be fascinated, interested, eager to hear. And, you know, that goes for men and women. Because at this point in time, you know, I think that, is there a woman who's still willing to hear a guy who goes on a date and just talks about himself? Oh. But remember when we were growing up?
Yeah.
When Gigi and I were in our 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 15 years ago, 10 years ago, men from our generation thought they could get away with going out to dinner with a very beautiful woman, attractive woman, and just talk about themselves all night.
Boring.
But I'm thrilled because nowadays you don't get that so much. And that's really amazing. So, you know, being a baby boomer and all the things we did in consciousness raising seems to have had an effect, you know, so thank goodness.
Wonderful. That's the good news too.
Yeah.
Now, what about when someone meets a fabulous partner? What do you really teach the women to do to really keep the relationship wonderful and ongoing?
Become inevitable. Be irresistible. You know what works. You may not want to do it. You may be annoyed. Why should I have to? All of that stuff. That is nonsense. If you want to have a fabulous, fabulous relationship, and you're a woman, I am breaking the bad news to you so my friends, these matchmakers, don't have to. There are a lot of women lining up for the few spectacular guys. There are not as many spectacular guys as there need to be. There are not enough to go around. If you're going to get one, it's because you have made yourself as fabulous as possible. And honey, you're going to have to hang on tight. You're going to have to be your most wonderful consistently. And I can tell you this because I've had 16 marriage proposals. I've been married twice. I've known a lot of men. I've seen a lot of men. I've worked with 1,000 different men and women over all these 17 years on marriage, on reconciliation, and on divorce. And the women who don't need me in the divorce area are women who really treasure their relationships and work very hard at them. So that's what you have to remember.
Very inspiring. You can make it work. Consistent and determined.
That's right.
Now we're going to have a wonderful clip. I know we're running a little behind. Would you explain what this is about?
Yes, this is some more secrets about having a great relationship. So enjoy this, please. You know, the results are amazing if you learn how to give empathy, which of course requires that you first give yourself self-empathy. The results are amazing. You know, one of the clients who has the very best marriage of all of my clients is that way because the husband is just an incredibly naturally empathetic guy. He's just a sweetie pie. He just is a nice, calm, gentle guy. And very successful too, by the way. So he's not, you know, he's not a milquetoast and nobody walks on top of him. He's just a really nice guy and he loves his wife. And she has learned from me how to be incredibly empathetic. And because she's been able to learn how to be so empathetic, he benefits, her siblings benefit, all of her kids benefit, all of her stepchildren benefit, her business partner benefits, and all of her employees and clients benefit. So that's one woman learning self-empathy, empathy, and the rest of the 6-part conversation. And as a result, thousands and thousands of people benefit every year.
It's a wonderful chain reaction. That's how it works.
Beautiful. That's what it is. Exactly. Thank you. A chain reaction. Yes.
Something to practice.
Yes.
Well, now would you be willing to give us an example, let's say about a couple having problems and how they use self-empathy and empathy to create peace and love?
Well, as a matter of fact, this woman's sister, she and her boyfriend are both my clients, and they are doing a spectacular job of each calming themselves with empathy and then giving the other person empathy because they're each going through different things. Each of them are in the process of changing their career in a very, very big way. And they're going to be working together, which you can imagine, that's a lot of stress. And he just moved. So all of these things were going on, and they have both been just doing the most spectacular job of really calming themselves with empathy for themselves, self-empathy, and then empathizing with each other. And the cutest part about the whole thing is this woman was taking a walk with one of my former clients who's a dear friend, and they were talking. And then this woman who's doing such a great job with this 6-part conversation turned to the other woman. She said, "Oh, I think it's time for a Susan Allen intervention. I think you need to get your skills back." So we're working on that. Isn't that cute? So cute. A Susan Allen intervention.
That's a good one. I like that. Very nice.
Thank you.
It's a compliment. Now, I know that it really seems that being mindful is the key to using these skills. Is that very true?
Absolutely. The trickiest part of the 6-part conversation is waking up in the moment and letting yourself know that you need to do self-empathy. So that's the most difficult part. That's why some of my clients have Post-its all over their homes, all over their offices, all over their bathrooms, all over their everything, because waking up and realizing I can't do what I used to do. I have to be moment by moment mindful, awake. The fact that so few of us who are alive at any time is awake, so few of us are awake, that's the trick. That's the biggest problem. Once you're awake, of course you know what you do doesn't work. Once you're awake, of course you want to learn new skills. It's only when you're like fast asleep and sleepwalking that you think you can keep doing the same old things that don't work and get better results. So being mindful is truly the most important first step of anything. So I'm going to read you some quick quotes from each of these 4 fabulous matchmakers, because this is a great way for you to really understand what you've got to do as well. So this is from Denise Levy, Matchmaker Gulf Coast, MissMatchmaker.net. The greatest compliment you can give someone is your undivided attention. It's not always about conversation starters, And what you say, it should be more about how well you listen. And above all, don't interrupt. Marla Martenson, Martenson. I remind my clients not to talk about their exes and prior relationships on the first date. Keep the conversation light. Just see if there is enough interest or spark for a second date. Don't make the first date a therapy session. Then from May Wee, the co-founder of Catch Matchmaking, working with the matchmaker is great because a matchmaker asks the hard questions so that you don't have to. Sometimes the same question can be asked in a different way. To see if the answers are the same, you can do that on a date too. If something doesn't add up, ask for clarification. The way you phrase things help. Phrase it in a curious way, not a judgmental way. And then Jessica Fass from Fass Pass Matchmakers, FASS. I don't believe in love at first sight. I believe in love over time as you experience life's pains and pleasures together, and you fall in love with how your partner handles them. Interesting.
I like that.
Very interesting.
Substance.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Susan. I want to get through so much more information.
Okay, well, this
with
is
you.
the first of a 3-part series, so we don't have to freak out. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
It's so exciting. So let's explore this. What do you teach the men so that they know how to keep the relationship loving and ongoing?
Every woman goes crazy for a guy who's caring and kind and listens to her. Because as I said earlier, this is a pretty new thing. This is like in the last 20 years where you have a body of men who actually care and listen. That's what successful, desirable, beautiful, intelligent, charming, sexy women are looking for. I'm not saying that they're not also looking for a guy who's successful. Yeah, a lot of women are, of course. And if you're going to have children, it's very important to have financial stability. And if you're not also caring and kind and attentive, then it's going to be very hard for you to get the very most desirable women.
Good information. Now, why is it being more open and willing helpful for women who really go ahead and go to a matchmaker?
Because nobody wants to deal with a difficult complainer. Not the men and not the matchmakers and not any of us, right? Because you've got to be self-actualized enough that you are peaceful and emotionally stable if you want somebody to present you as a candidate. Because, I've fixed people up. You saw in that clip that I, fixed up 2 different clients. One was a former client, the other was at that time a current client. And they are both wonderful people. You're not going to want to ruin your professional reputation as a matchmaker, or in my case, as a relationship coach, with people who don't say, oh, wow, she's fantastic, he's fantastic. So you want to be really clear about the quality of behavior you have.
Now, I know this is an important question for girls that are holding their breath. You teach your clients those Heartspace skills to motivate and inspire a partner to propose.
Yes.
Tell us all about that.
Yes, okay. I had the most interesting conversation with a client today, and she's working with me at this point on having her boyfriend propose. That's one of the things we're working on. And in fact, she's had 2 other proposals from different relationships. So what makes this guy so different? Well, this guy has so much more going for him. This guy is so much more desirable in so many ways. And she loves him and he loves her. And now what is it that she has to do in order to guarantee the proposal? Well, we discussed something today, this client of mine and myself. And I said, in the 16 marriage proposals, I think I was surprised every time. I wasn't surprised that my boyfriend proposed, but a lot of these guys, they weren't my boyfriend. They were an ex-boyfriend, or they weren't somebody that was at a boyfriend state. So I was surprised. But there's this magical moment where you are exactly what the guy's looking for. He realizes that he's been looking for someone just like you for a long time. That's what I call being inevitable. You meet his key needs. Now, ironically, these guys that I'm talking about in my own life didn't seem to care whether I met their key needs and they met mine. They were just looking at it from their perspective. But presumably men have evolved in the last, 25, 30 years, right? So become inevitable. Be honest with yourself about what is in it for this guy. What is he looking for? The matchmaker will tell you. The matchmaker will be very straight with you. And then you decide if this is who you are and this is who you're willing to be for the rest of your life. Because we're not talking about bait and switch here. I want to be very clear about that. This is not bait and switch. This is you show up looking beautiful, intelligent, sweet, kind, supportive, interested, interesting, and that's who you are. You're locked in.
Good advice as usual. Now, since we do have a little more time, would you please touch on getting married? I know since you've had at least 16 marriage proposals and you're an expert on this, what are the most important skills that you teach so that women are hearing those magical words on bended knee?
You have to be a nice person. Or you have to be so fabulous and so sexy and so hot and so great in bed that the guy's mind is blown and he doesn't even think straight. But that latter is not a good idea. That latter, that second version, that doesn't last very long, right? That's a recipe for divorce. But if you are a really decent person, that's when a nice man is going to say to himself, I can't let her get away. And remember, that's how Kate Middleton became the Duchess of Cambridge. He didn't want to propose. He didn't propose. He wasn't ready to propose. They'd been together for a couple of years in school. She was ready to get married. So she moved on because he wasn't ready to propose and they'd already been together for a couple of years. And she started going out and he saw her in all the, magazines. Now, probably you can't do that because nobody's going to see you in all the magazines. And his realization was that he could easily lose her and this would be, a terrible loss. And shortly after that, they got back together. Now, she didn't play games with him. She didn't say, well, if you want me to go out with you again, you have to where's the ring? Put a ring on it. None of that nonsense. That is so punitive, that is so abusive to a nice man who simply wasn't ready, and presumably the guy you're dating may or may not be ready either. So you make sure he gets ready. This is about motivating and inspiring somebody, not punishing somebody. Because when my clients get married, they stay married. Because at least one of them has enough skills. That's what it's all about.
Beautiful. Well, I know that this is our first of 3 series on matchmaking, and we really look forward to all of your questions and to be connected to a great matchmaker. Please go ahead and give Susan a call, and remember that she offers that complimentary 1-hour telephone session so that you really can find the perfect matchmaker that is for you.
Now, don't you have more time?
We have another minute, Susan. Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
Okay.
What would you like to say?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. So the big question, I think, that people are asking themselves is, well, do I need a matchmaker? And the bottom line is, here's how you know if you need a matchmaker. Do you have a partner tonight? Right now, this minute? Do you want a partner? That's all you have to ask yourself. Don't give yourself all the stories. Don't give yourself all the explanations. Nobody's asking you to defend or explain yourself or justify yourself. The bottom line is, do you have a partner right now, this moment? And if you do, great. So you're not available. If you want to break up, that's a different story. Call me, we'll talk about it. If you don't have a partner and you want a partner, then you don't want to waste any time. This is your moment because unfortunately, matchmaking has a very firm, short shelf life. If you're a woman, 45 and below, or for a few of the matchmakers, 50, 53, 54 and below. So you don't have endless time. And if you're tired of wandering around in the dark and bumping into walls, matchmaking is the ideal opportunity so that you don't have to bump into walls, you don't have to bump into people. You can be focused, you can be direct, you can look for exactly what you want, and you can have it. And now we are at zero.
Beautiful.
The clock.
And that's so safe. I love it. Thank you for the clarity, Susan. So it's a yes or a no. Now, I'd like to point out that Susan's Ask the Love and Relationship Coach is here in our Santa Barbara Family Life magazine. It's available online as well, www.sbfamilylife.com. And you can go to Susan's website, www.heartspacesolutions.com. And of course, you can email Susan at susanallen.org, and that great phone number for a 1 hour free information, 805-695-8405, and Susan's YouTube, youtube.com/Susan Allen 2001.